Saan ka? Bubukas naman pala. She got away. She got away. She got away. Paano nga ba ito? I wonder how. I wonder why. Oh, device disconnected. Why? Oh, I see. I see the problem. There are many problems. Ito, okay. That's why. Is it connected now? Okay. Oh, connected. Connected. I wonder how. I wonder why. Nakalagay sa disconnection mo lang magandang mobile connection. Ay! Ay! Dito ang pagkakagawa. Pag ganun, wala na, no? Ha? Nakalagay kasi connected naman pala sa mobile connection. Pag ganun, wala na. Disconnect mo eh. Uy, kasi yung disconnect mo lang eh. Disconnect from HL. Kasi pinapalagin ako. GHL lang yan. Kung online ka na sa GHL yung... Hindi ko alam. Ito ata yung Kaizen eh. Sira ito, diba? pa rin talaga. Let's see. Kung tayo blush. Ganito. Papagunin.
Diba sabi niya wag daw, hindi daw kailangan. Teka mo, yan yung nag-work. Tapos nag-work niya. Diba sabi niya, huwag na daw gawin yun. Pagka hindi daw pasok
Hindi
website.
pumapasok mo na.
Ano mo pinapayos mo dyan?
Phone. Bagong phone. Pumapasok na yung needs at saka kapas, pero hindi pumapasok yun eh.
Let's see if this will work.
So these types of issues are hard to train people on because they're just kind of a dime a dozen. I'll show you how I troubleshot this, how I fixed it. So obviously the issue was that this check data selection contacted someone in this contact. So what I did was I came to the website. I came to Gravity Forms, found the appointment form. And the first thing I did was I changed this. It used to be first name, and I changed it first name to name. Pretty easy fix there. Just change that. Probably is how it should have been set up to be.
Wow.
And I added a new
It
field
worked.
drop down.
Convert to
The first thing I did was I changed
Wow,
this. It
amazing.
used to be first name. Yes, it used to be
So
pretty
easy.
easy fix there. Probably is how it should be today. Right? Same. The second thing I did was, since the checkbox wasn't working, I decided to just try. Second thing I did was, since the checkbox wasn't working, I decided to just use the first thing. And obviously this used to be a checkbox.
What happened?
Basically just deleted it. I added a new field drop down, put in all the information. The other thing, however this field is on the form, you also have to go to settings, go to custom fields, and then you would need to create that same field.
Lagi nga lang
So
siya.
drop down, choose drop down. If it's a checkbox, you choose
Yung
checkbox.
kind of laggy.
Whatever it is here, so that it can connect from the form to go home. So basically, it was a checkbox. I deleted that one, instead settings, go on level. When you do that, when you change something in go on level, you have to come back to the form in what's called the map. Make sure it's map correct. So you come here, you find the custom field here, and then obviously you find, make sure it matches the value here. Click save. Then I just retested it. I submitted the test form. And obviously it came back here. And first name, last name, correctly.
Naging lagi yung PC ko bigla. Colorize lang ako. Open ulit ang Krita. Mga 21 minutes, wala akong natin.
Scroll down until you find what you're looking for at the top. I don't know why this ain't coming through. That didn't come through. That's not an issue. This selection, it wasn't. probably is how it should have been set up to be. But I changed it. It's a name. And saved it. Okay. The second thing I did was, since the checkbox wasn't working, I decided to just try to change this from a checkbox to just a drop-down option. View the form. And obviously this used to be a checkbox, and basically just made sure that everything that you have to do, and be careful not to forget this, is however this field is on the form, you also have to have an identical field created inside of it. So what you do is you come to their sub-account, go to settings, come to custom fields, and then you would need to create that same field. It's just he can connect from into that window. Go high level. You change something in go high level, you have to come back to the form and click what's called me map. And then obviously you find, make sure it matches the value here. And then click save. And then I just retested it. I submitted a test form. And last time I was looking for it. Double careful.
Ang kate. Wait. Alright.
Do you remember?
21st night of September. The bell was ringing.
Reply. day.
So, true to do. And new form, go to. So, name form. So this form has name, email. That's it. There's nothing to do on this page. Find. Okay, one of these workflows. We'll call it. First thing we're going to do is change the tag. Exactly. So I did not put a dash in the pipeline. Right now it's not. So it needs to go into a probably a sub action.
Say do you
All five. So instead of an auto initial one, even though we have normally, but this text message text to about most of it. Follow up or automation.
So, parang ang cellphone mo, magla-live ako sa TikTok. Pwede ba?
Eh, kami ng kape.
Ano kaya?
Pero,
Meron na pala akong binili, yung parang ginagano mo. Kaso, dyan eh. Kailangan. Hindi ka na mag-live.
namin kape.
Bago pa ko makita mo dyan, yung binili ko na parang yung ginamit mo pa nga. Pang TikTok, nanonood ka lang, nandyan ka na kayo galing minawa ka. Nandyan sa gilid na gilid yun. Sa ilalim ng kama, gilid na gilid yun.
Dito.
Oh, yan, nandyan lang siya.
Wala, box lang yan.
Sa sahig.
Ay, tayo mo na lang yan. Stand. Stand ko dyan.
Nasa listan mo. Kasi dapat kita niya to.
Pwede to.
Hindi eh. Gagalaw to ng gagalaw. Saan ko? Hindi dyan! Sa gilid! As in dyan sa gilid! Hindi dyan! Dito, sa gilid ng kama. Yan, dyan kung nasa yung bag ko. Bakal na black. Puro bakal na black. Wala. Hindi ko lang nakita. Ayaw mo na, sige na, huwag na lang mag-live.
Ito. Hirap ako.
Hindi, kasi mukhang wala naman. Thank you. Butik pa sa'yo pwede mag-live. Sa akin bawal. Oh, the bell was ringing. Oh, oh. Magtitingin nga ako sa ano, Fisher Mall, pag malapit na birthday mo, maraming naka-sale na alak doon, di ba?
Mas mura pa rin yung pangako sailors.
Hindi yung alak ba na ano, yung mga, ano yan,
Ano buwing kaya tayo?
Kung magbili tayo ng
sa isang
wine, bili tayo ng wine, bili rin tayo ng mga ano, yung mga Alfonso, ganyan. Ano yung mga lasing, sige na, ganun lang kayo.
Tapos na dry ice na lang. Mas
Oo.
mura yung dry ice eh. Diba yung nakita ko yung isang box?
Oo.
Isa ulit na box.
Somebody else. Somebody.
Magsisisig na lang ako para may pang ulam at saka pang fruits.
Wawa naman si Tita Lai, namatay na naman niya.
Si Jim
Ano siya na Ha? Oo, kaya yun.
May days pa naman na down. Kung hindi kasi pag walang birthday ng birthday ng araw, anong to? Anong sense?
Pag walang.
Walang may birthday nung araw na yun. For me, kaya mas okay yung birthday na mobile kaysa walang birthday, parehas kami walang birthday. Tapos, online lang dun.
Bante ko pala sa... Hirap pala mag-live dito. Nag-apply ako, pwede mag-live sa ano. Pwede mag-live dito sa TikTok yung gaming ko. Ginamit ko yung YouTube account ko kasi tinahanapan eh. Nag-live ako ng ML.
Kasi may nakikita ako dyan, nag-live sa TikTok, wala masyadong followers, nag-ML lang din.
Krita, kalawete kasi ako eh.
Mata siya,
Ay, bantush ko.
kasi tingnan mo, padete-boy na naman. Padete-boy.
Naka-live ako. Naka-live ako sa account ko.
Walang ba?
Ha? Kaka-live ko lang.
Ang cute, no?
Do you remember everything? Sabi na wala naman ng
Oo, kasi hindi ko na kailangan. Kaya pinawanag sa iyo mga TikTok references. Nakapasa ako.
She's got a wig na yun. She's got a wig na yun.
Oo, mayabang ka na. Dati, ano yun? Ano yun?
Ano yun natin?
Sa Pampanga. Sabay sira. Maganda pa ako na ibang cheesy.
Oo, tahong.
Tahong. Tahong ano, mas pares.
Invite ko na lahat na pwede kainin siya.
Oo, ano na naman, oh. Tumutulas ko.
Labhan to. Labhan ko nga to. Papawis kasi ako dito. She's got away. Mali. She's got away ba? Paano ko naman yan? Start family. Ayan, ganyan baga, oy. Paano? Start family. Paano? Ha? Ano? Ako. Ay, she's got a wig. Bakit gamitin itong pang-fill dito sa Krita? Hindi yung space. Hmm? Oo, nakapag mo. Mas gusto ng baby na po.
Umaba ka sa baba eh.
Hindi siya ako payat niya. Ha? Ako dyan, lakas ng kumain niya, may tumataba.
Natin pa to.
Eh, pero baka bata pa kasi, pag bata pa ata talaga.
Sexy.
Parang hyper kasi. Hindi mo siya ng white spots. Ay, di pa natin tapos yung isa natin pa nanonood na ano, documentary.
Alin yung per episode.
Oo.
Ano ba yung sa Disney?
Sa Disney lang yun.
Buksan ka ba?
Sige, baka na. Ikaw ba nanonood ka rin?
Oo, makikinig mo.
Ay, hello. Kumain mo nanonood. Yes, hindi ko na pala.
Walang plain yan sa dami. Tortilla chips.
Ayun lang, tapos pinapaubos na nga yung stock na yun.
Kasi.
Hmm?
Kasi. Wala akong nakitang cone ng ice cream.
Ay, hindi mo naman pinanap sa akin. Hindi ko alam.
Hirap mo ano sa numbers.
Sa Landers?
Mas ano kung kompleto pa fish.
Okay, tapos na siya. Tapos may tayo bago sa shadows, sa shading. Ba't pa nga pala siya nag-baking?
Papa.
Shadows mo ito.
Start.
Yan, shadow ka din. Perfect. Hello, thank you for follow.
Sabihin artistic ako.
Nakikilive lang ako kasi di ako pwede mag-live sa account ko eh. Nakikilive ako dito sa TikTok niya.
Master doon.
Hmm?
Nasa box na lang.
Kaya mo siya. I-live mo yan, naglalaro sa box. Mas marami pa manonood dyan.
Kikita pa ako dyan.
Hindi?
Ayan. Sa box na lang.
Anong wag na?
Huwag na i-live si Krita.
Medyo napayatan ko. pang children's book to, so hindi masyado important yung details. Yun. Matagal naman ang palabas.
Baka pa siya. May ako isip ng kaya dito.
Ako naman trend. Ano ba pala naayos to?
Seven naman.
Matulog ka na ata sa medyo ano yun eh. Yung dulo. Ayan, parang yung masyado harsh. Ayan na yun. Palayan natin yung background. Yung mga characters na ito, bata rin ito, tsaka ito. Ito pala, silhouette na rin itong mga katamad ng cola.
She was all day every day.
But then one day, the messages stopped. Holy shit. Something bad happened here. Hours
Okay, start ulit.
and Randy's still missing.
At that point, we had reason to believe that this is something more than just a run-of-the-mill missing person.
No one knows what happened or where she went until a clue is discovered. A text from Randy's phone. And it could be the difference between life and death.
I truly believe that that was her way of telling us if something happens to me, this is your way of finding me.
She solved her own murder from beyond the grave.
Take a sap on that phone. It was overwhelming evidence. She did help catch this killer.
May 17th, 2012. Youngstown, Ohio. It's a blue-collar town that's seen its fair share of hard times. For 20-year-old Brandy Stevens Rosine, life in this town can be lonely. So, she spends a lot of time on her phone and uses it non-stop, texting every day to connect with her friends and family.
Tsura niya ito.
So when the messages suddenly stop on a sunny spring day in May 2012, they quickly know something isn't right.
I am Brandy's friend, Christy Orga. By the end of the day, nobody in our immediate circle had heard from her. I called Brandy's phone, and no answer. I was calling, it was nothing. It was like the phone had been turned off, and that's odd. She never turned her phone off. Never.
Small chance she would avoid talking to a friend.
Carrying UT1, maybe one soft sticks.
And zero chance she talking to her mother.
Not being able to get a hold of your children. You don't want to think the worst? I wanted to believe that my daughter was okay. How could she not be? Brady was a strong individual. But yeah, something's not right here.
Like most teenagers, Brandy's still trying to figure life out and leans on her friend Christy for support.
She was nervous about being gay. She felt judged and she would get upset about rumors that were forming as a result of it.
Babae.
So that sparked our friendship
Lesbian.
because I'm like, let's talk about it.
Okay.
And then our friendship evolved.
Naging jowa niya yung friend niya. Akala ko sabi ko sa friendship ko.
Hindi ko sure. To be gay in Youngstown were kind of pushed to the back, weren't accepted. And it devastated Brandy.
Pero parang butch na tsura niya.
Pero butch na tsura.
But by the time Brandy's in college, she's living her best life.
Waya ka din college yun.
When I met her, she was blooming. She was very confident in herself and ready to date. And she was a hopeless romantic. So she wanted to find, the great love of her life. And she wanted somebody to be good to. She had a lot to give.
Ano ba kababae pumatay dyan?
Brandy uses her phone for more than just texting her friends. Like a lot of us, she uses it to find love.
She definitely was kind of exploratory in dating.
Ano ba kababae pumatay dyan?
She was a free spirit. I wouldn't put it past her to go and meet new friends that she had met online, be it out of state or a couple hours away from home. Some of the girls she would drive out by herself to meet, it was sort of a red flag. Why are you doing this? You don't know these people. Like I wanted to warn her about potential dangers.
So when Brandy stops communicating on May 17th, her family and friends naturally start to ask questions. Where did she go? Who did she meet?
I went into investigation mode. I called Brandy's best friend Rhiannon because Brandy said she was going to Rhiannon's. She told us that Brandy never came over. Said she had talked to her, but she had never come over. I called everybody, and nobody had seen her. Went to her Facebook page, went to her MySpace page, no activity. Something's not right here.
Never ako nagkaroon ng MySpace.
The day she disappears, Brandy is staying with her grandparents. So Carrie calls her mom, and
Friendster
she
lang.
gets troubling
Hindi
news.
kasi ako dati wala naman
She
kami
said
computer
Brandy
dati.
didn't come home last night. And she says when Brandy left the house, she did not take her backpack with her medical supplies in it, with her insulin. That was strange. Because she was type 1 diabetic.
Every time she'd go anywhere, she'd have to bring her insulin. If she would go without her insulin, she would not survive.
Okay.
So we knew that Brandy was in trouble because she didn't have that insulin.
A type 1 diabetic can't go more than a day without taking insulin. Her mom, Carrie, contacts the Youngstown authorities, now missing without her medication. Carrie files a missing persons report with police.
Good Brandy. I'm Trooper Joseph Straley. When we get a missing persons case of an adult, it's not too big of an alarm for us initially because they're an adult. They're allowed to move, come and go as they please, not tell anyone where they're going, and it's totally legal, and they can do what they want. So there was no knee-jerk reaction of we have to find her, except one issue was the fact that she was a diabetic, and it was unknown if she had access to her medicine at the time. So something to be on the lookout for.
Even though the missing persons case has officially been opened. Because she's an adult, local police don't actively search for Brandy. Brandy left her grandparents' residence in her own car and could be anywhere. All her loved ones can do is wait for a break.
All these thoughts go through your mind. You know, did she go off a road? Did she go into a ravine? Did she go in a lake? Maybe no one's just seeing your car. Your mind does crazy tricks on you when something like this happens in your life. If it was bad.
3 days pass from when Brandy goes missing. Calls and texts to Brandy still go unanswered. Then, a break in the case. On May 20th, an alarming text from Brandy is uncovered.
I got a text message from Brandy Steiner Rhiannon. She says, Brandy had texted me on Thursday and said that she had gone to Cockerton.
Rhiannon received several texts and a request to not share the info with anyone. So, she covered for her friend. But after it becomes clear something has happened to Brandy, she breaks her promise and shares the text with Christy.
Bago
Brandy
umalis
said, here's the address.
yung Brandy, yung mawawala. Tinext niya yung friend niya, para pupunta ko sa Concorton. Tapos huwag mo sabihin kung saan ako pupunta sa kahit sanino. Eh kaso nung nalaman ng friend niya na nawawala na to. Shinare yun, no?
Oo, syempre nawawala ka na eh.
That she had texted me and said that she had a funny feeling, and then later saying that she didn't get where she was going.
Sinabi pa daw na ubad address daw, hindi na siya nabago. Kaya babalik
Christy
na siya.
decides to take action into her
Bad
own
address?
hands since the police
Uuwi
won't.
na siya, gano'n.
Oo.
At hindi siya nakauwi.
Yung
I knew at that point that she had gone to Pennsylvania, which was about an hour away from us. So I decided that I'm going to go to that address that Rhiannon had
Buti
texted
na
me
naka-share location lagi.
and try to see if I can find the answer. In a half a mile.
Makikita mo sa Google Maps kung saan ako.
Oo, ito ko.
There's finally a trail pointing to where Brandy
Kahit
had
nga ikaw eh.
intended to go.
Yung last time nag-offline ka, nakita kong saan kay.
And now,
Kahit offline yung saan ko kasi.
her friend is in pursuit. But is Christy or anyone else prepared for what may happen next? May 20th, 3 days after Brandy Stevens Rosine goes missing. Her last text reveals a possible final destination. Local police are not looking for her. So, Brandy's friend Christy chases down the lead.
When I got the last text that Brandy had sent to Rhiannon, that made me nervous. So not only had anyone seen my friend, but she had a bad feeling before she left. So I knew that I was going to have to go out there to the address and search for Brandy and see if we could find where she was.
While Christy drives towards the address, Brandy's mother keeps searching for anything that will help her find her daughter.
We knew that she went to Cockerton. But we're still trying to figure out why. Why? You know, what's Cockerton? The only thing that I could come up with was Jade went to Cockerton. One of the girls that Brandy said that she had met on the dating app was named Jade. And when I first heard about Jade was, I can't wait for you to meet this girl. It was butterflies for Brandy. There was a lot of emotion for Brandy with Jade.
Oo nga, mataba siya.
I saw the sparkle in her eye when she looked at Jade. Brandy and Jade's relationship was on again and off again, hot and cold. They would fight.
Yung babae na kamatay dito.
Make up. Brandy even against the advice of a friend saying it's time to stop, to quit him.
After about a year, despite Brandy's best efforts to hold on to Jade, the relationship comes to a cold and cruel end in 2011.
Brandy comes home from work one morning and Jade was gone. So was $300 cash that was there, and her iPod.
Ano nakakawan pa siya?
It devastated Brandy. It hurt Brandy because Jade betrayed her. Brandy was so kind to her, and that was hard for Brandy. She struggled with that for a long time. You know, for a couple months, she was really, really, really sad.
While driving out to Cochranton to hopefully find her friend, Christy reaches out to Jade. Maybe she can help.
I texted Jade to ask her if she had seen Brandy. And Jade said, no, she hadn't seen her. And I said, okay, I'm going to head up to the address, see if I can see any car tracks or tires on my way there. And Jade's response was, be careful, people around here don't like gay people.
A fair warning for Brandy's ex-girlfriend Jade. Pennsylvania has seen a steady rise in violent crimes against LGBTQ individuals over the last decade.
Saan yan?
It can be rough out here if you're different.
Philadelphia's Office of LGBTQ Affairs says this crisis of violence against trans people cannot be allowed to continue.
Oo, kasi siya bunso eh.
I guess what's the possibility that she ran into a stranger who maybe didn't like people?
So, if she wasn't visiting her ex-girlfriend, could Brandy have been catfished? Lured out to the country by someone she met online who wanted to hurt her?
Oo, siguro.
Grabe nga effort naman yun.
May mga ganyan tao na may time siguro.
When I got off of the exit and got closer to the address, she had that. It started to get a little more creepy.
Ano, kaya ko sa Pennsylvania.
Paano
So
siguro yan?
now I know I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I can see the farms and sort of desolation, and still no sign of Brandy's car. So I felt, I don't know, just very nervous. I'm driving down these dirt roads. My GPS seems to be a little off. I can't even see the addresses on the houses. It's just really starting to get extra eerie as I get closer to the address I'm supposed to be at. I see no evidence, no clear evidence of an accident or her car. I finally get to the stop sign to turn onto Drake Hill Road.
In the middle of nowhere, friend missing, not answering her phone. But hope rises when she hears.
You have arrived at your final destination.
I eventually got to what looked like a church, and it was ominous. There was nothing in that church. There was no lights on. I knew at that point something had gone wrong. I was lost.
Instead of taking her to the address Brandy texted, Christy's GPS leads her to an old church in the middle of nowhere.
Baka nilure siya
When
sa
I
church
pulled
na.
into the church parking lot and realized I wasn't going to find the address I was headed towards, I felt frustrated and I felt helpless. And I felt like maybe Brandy had the same sort of experience getting to where she was headed that day. Did something really bad happen before she even got to the residence?
Brandy's last text she sent said bad address. Heading home. Did her GPS send her to the wrong location as well?
I thought about getting out of the car, walking around, going up to people's doors, realized there's no way that I was going to find the house.
Is it possible Brandy knocked on the wrong door?
The fact that I was lost and that a good friend of mine was lost and missing. And I just felt like while I was at that church, that's when I lost hope and became really nervous about what actually happened.
Brandy's texts lead to more questions than answers, and the chances of finding her fade with each second that passes. Until a phone call comes in that could lead her mother straight to her.
Ano niya ba yun? Yung pumunta?
Hindi, ex niya.
Yung naganap?
Ex niya yung naganap ako sa ano.
Baka ba yung ex niya yung Jade?
Iba pa yun.
Ah, iba pa niyang ex.
On May 21st, 4 days after Brandy sends out her last text, police pick up a signal for Brandy's phone in the small Pennsylvania town of Meadville, nearly 70 miles north of Brandy's home in Youngstown. Still not committing resources to locating Brandy, they pass along the information Brandy's mother.
I couldn't grasp the concept of why they weren't searching for her. I had a hard time with it, trying to understand, but yet we're ecstatic. You know, her phone got pinged, okay? Maybe she lost it, maybe it broke.
So, Brandy's friends and family form a search party and go looking for her.
When Brandy's cell phone pinged in Meadville, you know, immediately we were both like, yeah, let's go. Let's go there and look around. I was imagining that could have led to Brandy. Maybe, you know, there's still hope. We got
Kasi
into
budget
Meadville.
yung mga yun.
We went straight to the street of where her boat lived. The street dead ended into a wastewater treatment plant. I called her phone. Nothing. Things just weren't making sense.
The ping leads to a dead end. Literally. So, they
Ah, pero yung phone
expand
niya
their
okay pa
search.
rin.
Nag-ping daw yung phone niya dyan. Tapos,
So,
sa
went to the
water-based.
hospitals,
Then,
stores, restaurants. We went everywhere.
Ah,
Passing
pinapunta
flyers
siya
out.
kasama ng phone niya.
kasama
We had all separated, kind of infiltrated the town of Meadville. We went door to door with these pictures of Brandy.
But no one has any legitimate information about Brandy. Once again, she's nowhere to be found.
It was a very hard day. It was hard. It was hard for all of us.
Their search party comes up empty-handed. With the police still not engaging in the hunt, it's back to square one.
I felt like I was missing something. You get a lot of thoughts going through your head, but I was also very, very eager. I need to know what's going on. I need to know where my daughter's at.
5 days after Brandy was last heard from, running out of time and patience, Brandy's mom turns to the one clue left behind. Brandy's last text.
I couldn't give up. I absolutely could not give up.
She's determined to find the address that Christy failed to find 2 days earlier. So Carrie and Christy head to Cochranton, Pennsylvania.
Tuwa naman yung isa niyang ex.
I was nervous going there, but something is just pulling at my heart. I mean,
yung toxic niya.
there's something telling me that she's
Yung
around
Jada.
here.
Whether by a mother's intuition or a better GPS, a road that previously led to nowhere now leads to a house.
When we got there, we pulled into the driveway, and there was an older gentleman sitting on the stoop, as well as Jade and Ashley Barber. Ashley was Jade's girlfriend at the time.
Oh, yung Jade.
My initial reaction to Ashley Barber was she has to be a badass.
Strange that Brandy's last text leads to where her ex is staying, with her current girlfriend Ashley. Stranger still, Jade failed to mention anything about Brandy heading there when Christy called her.
I went and approached Jade, and I asked her. I said, "Where's Brandy?" She said she was coming here. Where's she at? Jade said, "Well, she never came here. We never saw her." And I looked at Jade and said, "I don't know. This is bullshit." I said, "I don't believe an F word you're saying."
Mama ni ano yan?
Mama nang nawawala
And then-
si Brandy.
Ashley got defensive with Jade in front of Jade and told Carrie, basically, don't talk to her this way. I immediately had a bad taste in my mouth. I felt like it was really distasteful, acting like a tough guy to my missing friend's mother, and not just for the sake of being a tough guy or being cool, but like not a good person was my initial reaction to what I saw about Ashley Barber.
Fan ba si
I
Ashley?
went up to Jade, and I said, "Well, she sent a
Yung
text
Jade.
Ay, yung
saying
Jade.
she was coming here.
Matabang
This is the last place that we know that she was supposed to be. And you're telling me that she never made it here? I don't buy it." As soon as I said that, Jade said she was supposed to come over there. But they never saw her.
After being confronted with Brandy's text, their story changes,
Ano silang gumawa?
but they have an alibi backing up their new account.
They said we were at the hospital on Thursday when she said she came here. That's why we didn't see her. Ashley held up her arms. One was covered in bandages and one was a solid bruise.
Sila yun.
Sila yan.
Her dad was sitting on the stoop, and he introduced himself as Mr. Barber, and he said, "I'm telling you, she's not here. We haven't seen her."
No,
It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. But we left.
All seems lost. Until a few hours later, when a call is made to law enforcement from inside that very house.
Yeah.
And the caller provides shocking new information. And an unexpected turn in the Bermuda Triangle of Brandy's disappearance.
Happening.
On May 22nd, 2012, several hours after the confrontation, Ashley Barber's mother makes a call to the Pennsylvania State Police, reporting a car in her garage she doesn't recognize.
Ano yun ni Ashley?
Like some stroke of humanity, this woman called the police and said, "There's a car in my garage. And you guys should check this out."
Sila nga. Sila nga.
Sergeant John O'Day Jr. is the first to the scene.
With another trooper. I remember going down to look at it. It was inside an attached garage. It was a blue Kia Rio, and I could immediately tell that it was Brandy's car. The garage was locked, so I couldn't look inside the car. But the exterior was very clean, and from what I could see of the interior, it was very clean as well.
Which was an immediate red flag because Brandy would have her Diet Mountain Dew and energy drink cans sprinkled out throughout her car, and papers and clothes, and certainly not clean.
After I located the car, I was able to interview Jade and Ashley. I asked them why her car was at the house. They related that she got a phone call after being at the residence for a very short time, approximately half an hour.
Ano ba, hindi nakarating?
Receiving
Di
a
ba?
phone call, she walked outside of the house and walked down Drake Hill Road to allegedly get picked up by an unknown actor.
Oh shit.
Sino daw ang bumake up?
Anong unknown? Hindi namin alam.
Ba't may iwan yung kotse
At
niya
one
dyan?
point, told them, "Listen, Brandy's not in trouble. I just want to know where she is. I want to make sure that she's not dead in a ditch somewhere."
Ba't niya naman iwan yung sasakyan
They
niya
said
dyan, di
that
ba?
Brandy didn't want anyone to know where she was, so she asked them to cover for her while she was gone. And not to say anything about the vehicle at the residence as well.
Oh, shit.
Sergeant O'Day leaves the house, satisfied that someone came and picked Brandy up.
Ang effort naman nila linisin para sa kanya.
Who is this mystery person that Brandy didn't want anyone to know she was with?
Hindi, nagsisiyan sila kasi
There
hindi
is
daw
a
nakarating
level
sa ano,
of
pero biglang
fear
nandiyan yung
in the
sasakyan.
LGBT community.
Tapos sila
Make sure
nilinis
you
pa
don't go
nila.
places alone.
Interior,
But
exterior,
I don't
ano
think you
pa?
can get lost for any time.
Exterior detailing.
Did Brandy's fearlessness
Bait naman
lead
nila.
her down that
Sobrang
desolate
bait
road?
ba yan?
It didn't strike me as odd at the time.
But it doesn't take long before the investigation takes a decisive turn.
Next thing I know, I get a phone call from the police officer that was at the scene and stated that they found my daughter's car at the Barber residence, Ashley's house, and that it was in my best interest to come and pick it up. I said, I'm not touching my daughter's car. My daughter's been missing for 6 days now. I said, I was just at that house. They never said anything about her car being there. They told me she never made it. I said, something is not right. Something is wrong. If you find her car and she's not there, doesn't that bring up questions?
I could tell that she's very concerned, and I'm sure as any mother, she wanted more to be done. And there's only so many things we can do until we learn more out of the investigation.
After that, I wanted to put pressure on the police. I called the FBI in Cleveland. No one else would listen to me.
Yan, FBI pag na-involve na.
Within an hour of
Kikilos
the
yung mga
call,
police.
state police officers
Ayun
returned to the
na, ayun na,
house
ayun na,
where
nakikipag-work
Brandy's car
na.
was found to dig deeper into Jade and Ashley's story.
Oh, girl.
There's just one small problem.
We returned on May 23rd to speak with Jade and Ashley, but when we went there, they were no longer at that residence.
Tama mo?
Nakawalan na
It
kasi.
started to add up that maybe there was something more than just a run-of-the-mill missing person.
Wow, may now.
Nakawalan niya kasi.
The
Yung Ashley, ano rin,
Not
Butch.
lucky.
into the case full
Huh?
Yung
force.
Ashley, Butch.
Oo.
But now, they aren't just looking
May
for
abang
one
daw.
girl. They're looking for
Nakakala ko yung
three.
Jade yung
Jade yung...
Were Ashley and Jade involved in Brandy's disappearance? Or did they suffer the same fate?
At that point, it started to arise some suspicion. We didn't know what had happened.
To find answers, investigators send out their names and faces to every law enforcement agency in the state.
My shift ends, so I get my personal clothes, get my personal vehicle. On my way leaving the city of Meadville, I noticed 2 white females dressed in all black goth attire with plastic grocery bags in their hands.
sila na yan.
They were just at that point crossing over the guardrail from the wooded area right next to French Creek. At that time, they were having a conversation with a gentleman that was parked underneath the overpass. As they started to pass them in my vehicle, they bladed themselves away and almost turned away from me so I couldn't see their faces.
The 2 girls matched Jade and Ashley's description, prompting the off-duty officer to approach the parked car and speak with them.
Went to the passenger in the rear. After her name, she provided me the name of Jade Olmsted. And then I asked the front seat passenger what her name was. She provided a false ID without batting an eye. And I was like, "Are you Ashley Barber?" She once again continued to lie until eventually she said, "I'm Ashley Barber."
Tingnan na itsura.
My first impression of Jade, I could tell that she was nervous, she was scared, and she was definitely following Ashley's lead. Ashley just stared at me with these cold eyes and continued to lie about her
Actually, yung
identification.
ano, Butch.
I asked them if they would be willing to come back to the Pennsylvania State Police Barracks for an interview. They willingly came of their own free will, and they were escorted back to the barracks to be interviewed.
Detectives separate Ashley, Jade, and the driver for questioning. They determined the driver was only there to pick up the 2 girls and had no connection with Brandy. He's allowed to go free, while Jade and Ashley's interrogation continues. As detectives press Jade and Ashley at the station, a Officers search Ashley's home for any evidence that could tell them what really happened to Brandy.
About 300 to 400 yards away from the residence, I came across an area in the woods that was clear of a lot of leaves and debris. There was some fresh dirt. There was some small saplings on the ground. The soil was loose, wasn't compacted, which would indicate maybe it was freshly dug. So at that point, we wanted to see what was under there and investigate that further.
Thinking they may have discovered something suspicious, they called the medical examiner to aid in the excavation.
Not chilling, substance. We removed the tree branches. We had about a 10-foot by 10-foot area that seemed to be all fresh dirt. And you can see a little bit of an indentation in it. But it's getting dark. We called the Pockerton Fire Department to bring in scene lighting. We just started digging a handful at a time, scooping it out of the way.
Tinapos siguro yung center
And
doon sa
less than 10
pumunta.
inches into the dirt, I was finding like green leaves and stuff that shouldn't be buried. I mean, it was fresh because the leaves were still green. I'm like, well, someone purposely buried those items.
Green
As we
leaves
kept
na
on
sa
going, I got down to about 20 inches. And I found flesh.
As police continued to question Jane and Ashley, piece by piece, crime scene investigators dig up evidence of an unspeakable crime. An act of violence so savage, it's impossible to comprehend. A 20-year-old college student has been missing for nearly a week. A text leads police to an address, and behind that address is a wooded area with something buried beneath the soil.
We were approximately 20 inches into the earth. That's when I actually discovered chin and mouth.
Ano daw?
As you can
May
see,
chin and mouth
on
na
these
nakita.
pictures right here, you can actually see teeth. And then from there, we uncovered the nose, the eyes, and the head. And at that point, you could tell that it was Randy. There was also some signs of the struggle, blood, and other things that you could tell it was a battle. I've seen a lot of different homicides and death, but it was shocking to uncover someone in that manner.
7 days after Brandy sent her last text, police finally discovered why she wasn't returning calls.
About 2 in the morning, they told me that they found Brady's body in a shallow grave. It's your worst nightmare. It was horrifying. It was horrifying that day. Absolutely horrifying.
My phone rang after Carrie caught word that they had found Brandy's remains. I slid down the wall slowly as she was explaining that Brandy was dead. It's just unfathomable that this could have happened to someone so sweet, so loving, so smart.
Detectives confront Jade and Ashley with the news that Brandy's body was discovered in the woods behind Ashley's family home. Both girls agree to tell the truth about what happened to Brandy. And the truth is horrifying.
We were told by the state police that when Brandy first got there, Jade met her by the edge of the woods and that they had invited her to stay for in the woods. Well, the minute Brandy starts going into the woods, Jade hits Brandy over the head with a shovel. And it was multiple hits. And if that wasn't enough, they tied a rope around her neck. They had already dug the grave and they rolled her into the grave.
Maplano nila ako.
And then they threw a rock on her face. And they married her. That's how they treated her.
Jade and Ashley admit to planning and carrying out a vicious and premeditated attack on Brandy. But only after the autopsy is performed do the police learn the extent of what she went through the night she died.
We discovered that Brandy had mud and dirt all the way down to her bronchial tubes. That indicated to us that Brandy was still alive when they buried her.
She fought back. She had broken nails, scratches. She had 3 skull fractures. Brady wasn't dead when they buried her.
Not penalty.
He was still alive. I think that's horrible. She was still breathing. They buried her.
Penalty.
It's brutal. You know, it's savage and completely uncalled for. I just want to know why did this happen? How did we get to this situation?
Brandy's family and friends never get an answer to that question. But after Jade and Ashley are arrested for murder, 2 journals are discovered that reveal horrifying insight into the minds of these young killers.
This is Ashley's journal entry that she dated May 21st, 2012.
Ashley, ano ba?
Dear Ms. Rosine, I fucking murdered your 20-year-old mistake. I beat her head into the ground. I've never been so alive. I just want to do it again and again. Why lie? I'm addicted. I don't feel guilty. I feel like I have a purpose.
No.
I'm gonna read Jane's for you. Yesterday was the beginning of a whole new life. I found my calling, a new addiction.
What?
Do I feel guilty? No. Not an ounce. I'm proud.
Ano ba yan? Ano meron sa mga yan?
As details of the crime spread, Brandy Rosine's case stuns the nation and rocks this community to its core.
We're in a small town. We have investigated some homicides in the past, but nothing to the brutality of a case like this. Such disregard for another human life.
Dapat death
When
penalty.
the preliminary hearing and everything got out about what happened to her, of course, everybody
Addiction na
told
daw
Gracie
nila
they
yun.
need
Dapat
a death
death penalty.
penalty. They need a death penalty.
Oh, yun, death penalty nga.
Prior to this situation, I had never believed in the death penalty, but after it happens to somebody that you love, with the
Death
amount of
penalty kasi addiction na daw nila. Gagawin nila
information that we had,
yun.
it altered everything for
Ulitin
me.
lang nila yan. Kasi addiction na
Although it is rarely carried out, capital punishment is legal in Pennsylvania. To avoid any chance of receiving the death penalty, both girls accept a plea deal. On October 31st, 2013, nearly a year and a half after Brandy's murder, Jade Olmsted pleads guilty and is sentenced to life in prison without parole. 2 weeks later, Ashley Barber pleads guilty and is sentenced to life in prison without parole.
Usual suspects.
Jade and Ashley got sentenced to life in prison. Everyone's like, it's over. It's not over. It's never over. I have
Dapat di sila pwedeng mag-usap, no? Kung parusa sa kanila, meron na sila pwedeng
not a day that
magkita.
goes by that I don't think of my daughter.
As a father, I would have hoped for more if it was my child, but that was the plea deal that they reached.
What started with a text message to a friend ended with 2 murderers in prison for the rest of their lives. Justice served for some, but for those who knew Brandy, there will always be an open wound.
There are
Ba yung
evil
mukha nito?
in this world that hurt children every day. And I don't want any parent to ever feel what I felt.
I guess this is the only thing the person remaining can do and keep her memory alive. The best we can do is try to let her continue to have a voice. Maybe someone can learn from this situation.
Brandy Stevens Rosine was a warm and kind-hearted young woman. She always had her phone in her hands, texting, making plans with her friends, staying connected with the people she loved. Ultimately, that connection helped solve her murder.
The bottom line is, Brandy had her own way of letting us know, this is where I'll be if something happens to me. It was all from the text. The last text that she physically sent to anybody. Found my baby.
Nagkakatiwalaan niya kasi yung mga yun eh, diba? Hindi mo masisi yun eh. Huwag ka nang isipin gagawin sa'yo yun, diba?
Napunta ko lang para patayin.
Ano pa talaga ginawa, no?
Log in, scroll, chat, look up. It's a familiar plan. It was John Ray's plan. Until May 16th, 2004.
It was a very gruesome, bloody crime scene. He still had a broken off knife in his body.
Who could have done this?
Why take his life? Why take his life?
7 years go by. It becomes a cold case.
He just felt like just another statistic.
But little did his loved ones know that hidden in the trunk of his own car was a clue. A clue he left that changed everything.
Speaking to us from the grave.
She solved her own murder from beyond the grave.
Take the sap on the phone. It was well-made text. She's catch this killer.
After serving in the Air Force, 29-year-old John Ray returns home to small-town South Carolina with a big dream: to become a successful attorney. He moves to Atlanta and spends 3 years thriving as a paralegal, studying for law school, and laying down roots in the community. That's why, on May 17th, 2004, when John makes plans to meet up with his best friend, and he never shows, everyone knows something is wrong.
My name is Markeisha, and John was my best friend. That day, he said I'll be there no later than about 10 o'clock. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. I'm calling him. And
Ano, gay?
calling him. I don't hear from him. Nothing.
His sister also gets concerned.
I called John. He didn't answer. By the time we got to Tuesday, I'm calling his job. They said we haven't seen John since last Friday. This is unlike him not to go to work. Wednesday comes, still nothing. And I'm like, this is not him. Something is wrong.
Markeisha is heading over to John's house when she gets a disturbing call from his office.
She said, I understand that you have a key. And I said, yeah, I'm on my way now. No, don't go. We believe something is wrong. We're going to have a uniformed police officer meet you there. And my stomach has to fall in.
Markeisha hands over the key. A police officer and one of John's co-workers walk into his house.
All of a sudden, the co-worker runs back out of the house. She's crying, and I just drop. I just burst into tears.
Sa bahay siya.
It's 5 p.m., Wednesday, May 19th, 2004. The officer calls it in.
I just found out that he was dead in the house. Broke my heart. There's a king in that house.
Homicide detectives arrive and take over the investigation.
My name is Detective Nicole Escaline. In the year 2004, I was the homicide detective in the city of Atlanta. It was a very gruesome, bloody crime scene. It looked like there was a huge struggle. There was absolutely no doubt this was a homicide. It was obvious with the defensive wounds and the way that the crime scene looked that John Ray did not want to die that day. While processing the scene, we did observe that there were some electronics missing in the residence, and his car was missing. But the odd part of the scene was that there was no forced entry. So it looks like whatever had occurred with a person that the victim had to have known. There were glasses as if he was having a cocktail with somebody else. It appeared that the victim was very vulnerable and his guard was actually down. At some point, whoever did this to the victim hit John Ray, and the struggle that ensued was very vicious. suspect grabbed a knife.
Taba pala ng hingis. Magaling ko.
And stabbed John Ray numerous times with force. So much force that he broke the knife off in John Ray's body. To stab and break a knife off in a person's body, maybe it's a crime of passion. There's a lot of anger behind those homicides. And then, while processing the scene, another thing did stand out.
The air is thick with the smell of bleach.
Whoever did this cleaned up the crime scene and tied up John Ray with a foam cord. And then spent some time at the crime scene. It looked like possibly a shower had been taken recently. The found in the washing machine a wet jersey that had been washed. And so it looked like some laundry was being done.
A small detail, but important.
John was an impeccable dresser. And he did it well. GQ magazine. Even when he was dressed down, he was dressed up. That could not be his shirt because that's not the way he dressed. No, John would not wear that.
We knew it had significance, but we just didn't know how much significance it would have at the time.
Detectives believe this jersey must be the killer's. But there's no DNA and no fingerprints to point to who did this. Leaving John's family back home in South Carolina, yearning for answers.
John was my oldest son. When we found out, we had to go up there. He was body. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. To be honest with you, he really kept our family together.
Look at the hair. Okay, yeah. Oh, that's a hot top fade. Oh, that is so 1990. Like,
Black siya,
a
no?
politician.
Pag pagdating ko na, baka hindi ako.
I am John Ray's younger sister. John was like my role model. John was determined to leave Rosie because he wanted something other than working in the factory all the time.
Kala ko na bakla eh. Di ba?
Wala naman sinabi.
My name is Joyce Ray. I am John Ray's mother. He said, Mom, I think I need to leave South Carolina. I need to make a fresh start. So, you have to let him fly. Can't hold it back. And he went. It just didn't turn out good.
Even though John is loved and admired by his family, he still finds it difficult to share all the details of his life with them.
John told me that he was homosexual when he
bakla
came
nga.
to visit. I didn't have an issue with his sexuality.
Out naman.
But my parents are much older and they were more conservative.
Hindi nga siya.
I think John
Hindi
moved to
siya
Atlanta with many different goals,
Siya
and
mapag-aral.
I believe he felt like he could be himself in Atlanta without being judged.
So, John moves to Atlanta, and in addition to establishing a beautiful career and life, tries finding true love and companionship. But just when investigators thought that his search for the one ultimately led to his tragic murder, they discover another chilling possibility. The brutal murder of John Ray shocks veteran detectives, but the autopsy reveals the extent of the horror.
this case was killed somewhere around 10:30 p.m. on the 16th. Cause of death was stab wounds. He was also beaten and strangled. When the autopsy was performed, the medical examiner was able to tell us 6 inches of the knife was still lodged in Mr. Ray's lung.
Tanggal nga yung ano eh. Gusto mo hawakan ng knife.
Ganun kalala na.
Sobrang lalim.
Galit na galit ah.
Investigators have to consider every possibility while they search for suspects.
Kinuha ko.
In the meantime, they find something intriguing.
Through the investigation, we learned that John Ray had been burglarized and robbed 2 times prior to this incident.
The second break-in took place just 4 days before John's murder.
But the biggest difference is in those 2 incidents, there was definite forced entry.
That's not the case on the night John is killed.
There was no forced entry. There were no windows broken. The alarm had never been set off. The front door wasn't kicked in. The victim, at whatever level, had to have known this particular suspect. Processing the scene, there was no car at the scene. Did the bad guy also take his car?
It seems unlikely this is simply a robbery gone wrong. Detectives reach out to John's friends and family to see if they have any ideas about who took his life. And police discover John had a serious run-in with his landlord.
Apparently, this house that he was living in, he was sort of renting to own, and he kept paying the landlord the money, but then the house was still foreclosing.
Ay, ayaw ko ng ganyan eh.
Yung ano yung rent to own.
Oo. Tapos hindi naman pala nila binabayaran eh. Di ending, para ka lang din nag-rent.
The landlord has not been telling him the truth.
Parang
So he
katulad
confronts
kay,
him.
sa kotse ni
Owe me money.
When John found that information
Ah,
out,
hindi ko medyo.
ganun
he
din.
became confrontational with the landlord, and that went very south.
Baka may kinalaman ng landlord. Hello, ano yun, Gil?
Detectives believe
Thank you.
this could be a significant break.
The landlord obviously at that point became a suspect in the case because that gave us some motive. Because John was killed in such a violent manner, there had to have been some anger behind that.
Kasi grabe
We
yung
were wondering if
pagkakaroon sa amin.
possibly the landlord was angry about the argument.
The landlord is a solid lead, but investigators want to know if John had trouble with anyone else.
They got a search warrant for John Ray's work computer, and they were able to determine things that John Ray was searching.
Detectives find that John was active on several dating sites. Could he have met his killer online? While forensics examine John's computer, investigators ask John's family about his love life.
I was the only one that was able to give him some answers. I know John figured out one of his romantic partners wanted to use him for money.
Ano na?
John's friend Markeisha didn't know he was gay, but she does remember John talking about his friend.
The guy asked him for $300, and when John tried to explain to him, I'm on a budget, and the guy says something to the effect that, hey, I know you have it. Why don't you just give it to me? I know you have it. And John lit into him. It could have been anybody. But we just knew it was that gentleman who had asked for money and was angry that he wouldn't give it. We just knew.
We thought that you have a person that John had a relationship with, so you know there's probably going to be some sort of animosity or bad blood between them because they're not together anymore. So you had greed and money, you had passion and relationship, you sort of had a perfect suspect.
2 viable suspects, 2 suspects who have major issues with John. Before long, though, police are able to eliminate one of the options.
Landlord.
The landlord.
What is it?
He provided a clear-cut alibi, so we had to rule out the landlord as being a suspect.
But what about John's ex-boyfriend? Detectives can't seem to locate him, and forensics can find no indication that he met John online. In fact, the dating sites are a bust in terms of additional suspects.
It was very frustrating because we worked all the angles, all the leads. We checked absolutely everything we could.
Then, investigators realize they're missing some information that may turn out to be critical. On the night John Ray is brutally murdered, investigators notice his car is missing. What they don't realize is that John's white Pontiac Grand Am ended up in a crash 3 miles from his house.
Sabi na, ako lang ako namatay na.
We discovered that the victim's vehicle that had been taken the night of the murder actually was involved in a high-speed chase with City of Atlanta officers.
At 3:30 a.m., the car plows into a telephone pole, causing a small explosion and power outage.
When the officer approached the vehicle, he was able to observe that there was blood all over the airbag. So the person involved in the crash obviously was injured in the crash.
Still, the driver manages to get away before officers arrive.
Galing niya, doon na siya nakatakas pa siya.
Everything was collected inside the car, and there were stereos and electronics and things like that. But at the time on the scene, the officer didn't know that this car was connected to the murder. So he still did a good job in preserving the evidence, but he just didn't link the two together at that particular time.
Eventually, police are able to link the stolen car to John Ray. But since the driver escaped, they don't have an ID. No ID. No suspect.
That's when the stress really starts mounting because you feel like you've hit every lead and you just hit another brick wall.
In 2004, Atlanta detectives are overwhelmed with homicides. So after investigating for 8 months, they're forced to move on.
When a case starts going cold, it's hard not to take that personal because you know you're not doing the family justice. There's just no excuse you could ever give a family for not bringing them the justice. So it's very frustrating.
John's family members mourn, with no closure.
They never said anything to us that it was being politicized. We just felt like he was just another statistic.
Time passes. Nothing happens.
I prayed that the rage would go away. I didn't know I was walking around like a ticking time bomb. Every single person in my mind, I would analyze. Could it be? Why would he? Could it? Nah, I would. Just could not figure it out.
John Ray's case goes cold for 7 years. Then, in 2011, Atlanta PD establishes a homicide cold case unit. And the investigation of John Ray's murder reopens.
My name is Marshall English.
investigator. I have over 28 years experience in cold case investigations. John Ray was an employee in the Fulton County Public Defender's Office, and he was also an Air Force veteran and Army veteran, so I kind of took it more personal, and I just wanted to try to bring justice, to the family.
At first, I was like, Lord, is this a test? This can't be real. Detective English was like, you're going to be getting many calls from me. We're about to break this case. I thought that I would just pass out. I was so happy. Because leading up to that, I had been praying, God, please don't let me leave this earth not knowing who did this to my best friend.
The investigator starts from scratch.
First thing I do is review everything in the case file. Our goal was to determine if there was any suspects for us to interview.
English comes across the reference to John's ex-boyfriend.
John Ray had mentioned to his friend Markeisha that there was some kind of argument over money. The lead detective was unable to locate the individual during that time in 2004.
But this time, the investigator has better luck.
I was able to locate the subject and spoke with him.
Unfortunately, it's another dead end.
I determined the individual was not in the state of Georgia when this incident occurred, so I was able to rule him out as a suspect.
Next, the cold case team decides to go through all the evidence that's been sitting in storage for 7 years. They find John Ray's work computer and boot it up.
So when we opened up John Ray's computer, we noticed he was on several dating sites. We were able to rule out the individuals that he had contact with.
But there's something else on John's computer. Criminal background checks.
We wanted to determine whether this was work-related or whether this was a personal.
While the team looks into the 3 men, they also focus on a second crate of evidence. This one is sealed. It's the contents from John's car that crashed hours after his death. Evidence that's never been examined. Until now. The cold case team investigating the murder of John Ray is reviewing evidence that's been in storage for 7 years when they hit the mother lode.
One crate was not open. It was still sealed. There was definitely an adrenaline rush. I was a little surprised seeing all that evidence and was hoping to get something to try to help solve the case.
Inside that crate, John's briefcase, which had been in the trunk of his stolen car.
Inside the work bag, I noticed there was some printouts of one individual from the Department of Corrections website.
The printout is the criminal background check for Tarico Jackson. Tarico Jackson is one of the names found on John Ray's computer.
Tarico Jackson's extensive criminal history, including several charges of burglary and armed robbery.
John Ray had been robbed several times, including the night he was killed.
What stood out to me was John Ray was murdered May 16, 2004. The printout was dated May 12th. There was nothing to show that there was any kind of connection work-related with Tarico Jackson.
So, if it's not work-related, is Is it possible John had a personal interest in Tariko Jackson?
John Ray had told a friend of his that he had recently met an individual. Didn't give any kind of details, that he kind of felt the person was a little shady, is the best word to explain.
Somehow, John Ray knew who Tariko Jackson was and had him on his radar and was researching him.
There's more. Another piece of damning evidence. A copy of Tariko's ID. In the photo, Tariko is wearing the exact same jersey found in John's washing machine the night his body was found.
Apparently, Tariko Jackson was very fond of this shirt. It's the belief of the cold case detectives that possibly Tariko Jackson was going to come back and get his belongings.
This shirt was very distinguishable. It's the same shirt.
The information we found in the briefcase was not what we were expecting, and it was a huge key in the case.
John was speaking to us from the grave because he had left so much information in that briefcase in his trunk. And I could almost hear him say, if you just open the trunk, you find what I left you.
Investigators continue to dig. Detective English reviews phone records from 2004.
One of the last calls on John Ray's phone on the night of the murder was made to Shamika Williams.
This Shamika Williams is a friend of Tariko Jackson. Apparently, they're pretty close.
After further investigation, I learned that Shamika had visited Tariko in prison.
So that was a big key piece of evidence that gave us a connection to putting Tariko Jackson inside the home of John Ray. It must have been him that called her number from the residence of John Ray. And interestingly enough, she didn't know who John Ray was at all.
Still, it's all circumstantial. Then, English stumbles upon a missing piece of the puzzle.
Some of the evidence that was collected from the stolen vehicle, John Ray, was blood from the airbag.
Oo. Yung blood yun naman yun.
DNA sample was submitted to the crime lab for analysis, and all the blood came back to Tariko Jackson.
Hindi siya. Yung ex niya. Si Tariko. Hindi ko alam kung sino. Pero nandyan daw sa... Hindi yung
My
ex
name
na
is George Turner.
Kinausap.
I spent
May
7
alibay.
years as a police chief in the city of Atlanta.
Ah,
In
yung
the John Ray
Lagos?
case,
Wala,
the
dami yan
investigator
din.
trying to
Meron din
reconstruct the
siyang...
accident was very challenged because they didn't have the body when the accident took place. So ultimately, they determined it was just a stolen vehicle or a crashed vehicle. The detective, when he received the call of the homicide, also had not tied those things together. It wasn't until much later that they determined that the vehicle was associated with the victim. So ultimately, evidence go cold, and it takes someone that have dedicated time looking at those pieces to bring those things together to be able to solve this crime.
Now, police can place Tariko in John's car the night of the murder. The evidence seems strong.
Even though you're excited, you know that you've got a hurdle to jump over. You always have to pretend like the defense attorney's on your shoulder, because whatever you come up with, they're going to come up with a defense.
After 7 years of pain, will John Ray's family and friends finally get the justice they deserve?
Saan mo ito nasa taas?
sits unsolved for 7 years. Then, in just 2 months, the cold case team gathers enough evidence to file charges.
Tsura ng mga pwede.
On August 22nd, 2011,
Makapal ba?
Tariko Jackson is indicted for felony murder, aggravated assault, burglary, and possession of a knife
Okay na
during the
siguro.
commission of a felony.
Yun ata yung nangungutang sa kanya eh.
Ay, hindi yung nangungutang kinausap pala doon siya sa, sa lugar na yun. Naku, nawala siya sa lugar na yun.
Took us to get somewhat of a closure. It's upsetting to know that they had all of this evidence just sitting. Had they never developed this cold case department, wouldn't be here now.
The trial begins on September 5th, 2013.
What made this case difficult, it was a circumstantial case. Putting the pieces together with photographs that show phone calls the night of John Ray's murder
Wala na kaya
was
yun.
all more of a puzzle of circumstantial evidence that the jury had to hear. It was a little concerning whether they would convict him.
And maybe they won't. Because Tariko's defense is that John attacked him. And all he needs is one juror to believe him.
Initially, he just pled not guilty, and right before the trial, he claimed self-defense. It was just crazy, and I just was shocked.
Tariko act like he was the victim. I guess he was saying that John was gonna kill him, but he wasn't brought up like that. Why would he want to hurt you? He was trying to help you.
Marcus Garner, Statewide. My name is Marcus Garner. I was a reporter with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution at the time.
You were at the trial?
Yeah, I did cover the trial. Tariko Jackson, he seemed a bit indignant initially. During the course of the trial, you could literally see the evidence starting to weigh on him.
Prosecutors point to the timeline. John is murdered on May 16th. His body isn't discovered until May 19th. They believe Tariko remained in John's home.
Naligo pa siya eh.
Apparently,
Naglaba pa
Tariko
siya.
Jackson was making phone calls from the house, conducting business in the house as if it were his own.
He made dinner, he made lunch. He lived in a house with a dead body. A heartless person. Stay in the house with a dead body, walking over.
The prosecution claims Tariko targeted John Ray. And John wasn't the first.
Tariko Jackson was preying on gay males.
Tariko would have a relationship with the individual, and he would burglarize or rob them. This appeared to be a
galing na talaga
pattern
niya.
with the male individuals he was involved with.
I think Tariko Jackson thought that he would probably just knock him out, grab all the stuff, and flee and get away with it, like he had done so many other times. And then I think John Ray fought back for his life.
television.
After
Eh,
7
lawyer,
days of
lawyer,
testimony,
kasi tapos veteran
the
pa eh.
jury only deliberates for 1 hour.
Kaya veteran ano lang.
Rico was found guilty of felony murder, aggravated assault, burglary, and received 2 life sentences and 25 years in prison.
Once he got his sentencing, he turned around and said it was either going to be me dead and your brother on trial, or we're going to be where we are now.
He was just an evil person. Very evil. Would take away my son life like that.
Evil talaga kasi nung tumira ka pa doon, patay na yung tao, di ba?
When we were asked to pursue the death penalty, he did not want that. We wanted him to be alive, to suffer the way we have, because Sean's not here with us anymore.
Do I feel justice was served? I still breathing.
One question remains unanswered. Why would John knowingly invite a convicted criminal to his home?
John Ray, because he was involved in this environment through his job, might have been comfortable with criminals. He probably thought that he could handle himself and that it wouldn't happen to him.
I believe John was trying to help him get on a better path.
John had a big heart. And so it made sense that he was talking to this Tobacco guy.
4:36 na pala. Thank you for nanonood. Bye. Hanggang ko to i-end.
And got the guy that did it. That's what's important to me, and that's important to
Ayun.
my family.
Thank you.
It
Bye.
don't bring John back, but it brings a little family. You know, I love the